All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network, America Talk Network, Rogers Media International, RRTV, VRRR, and Media for International Law Enforcement Officers everywhere. And, of course, our mother network is the Talkstar Radio Network. 1-877-528-8255 is toll-free, or 1-800-610-7035. Email xzone at talkstarradio.com, on MSN Messenger, talkstarradio@hotmail.com, and our websites, www.xzoneradio.com and www.xzonetv.com. Today is Friday, November the 20th. Wow, the month is really flying by. And on this date in history, in 1620, the very first baby was born to the Pilgrims who arrived aboard the Mayflower. In 1888, the first punch-in time clock was invented. On this date in 1914, the U.S. government began requiring photos on passports. And on this date in 1971, hunting from airplanes was made illegal. Now that makes a lot of sense, and it took them all those years to figure that out. If you're celebrating your birthday today, from everyone here at the X Zone Radio Show and our good friends at the Talkstar Radio Network and our other affiliates, to you, a very happy birthday. You're celebrating your birthday along with Dierks Bentley, who is a country singer, and Josh Turner. Let's see, Dierks turns 34 and Josh turns 31. Pianist, composer, nice guy, Jim Brickman turns 48 today. Bo Derek, wow, there you go, there's a nice memory for you, 53 today. Guitarist Joe Walsh turns 62. Wow, Norman Greenbaum turns 64. Talk about the spirit in the sky. And Dick Smothers, now here's another one. He's the one that Mom always liked best, by the way, turns 70 today. On tonight's show, we've got some very interesting guests, as we always do. My first guest is a good friend of the X Zone, Jim MARRS. We're going to be talking to Jim in a few minutes about his new book, The Sisterhood of the Rose. Nick Redfern will be joining me later on, Philip Smith, and who knows who's going to drop in drop-in hour tonight, because it is Friday. And on Friday, we just like to open the door. We invite 5 or 6 different guests, and whoever knocks on that door first gets to open the door, and guess what the prize is? Us. 1-877-528-8255 is toll-free, 1-800-610-7035. Jim MARRS is my guest this hour. As I said, X Zone Nation, he's got a brand new book out called The Sisterhood of the Rose, the recollections of Celeste Levesque. And, you know, I've got a lot of respect for Whitley Strieber, and he wrote a very nice little bit on Jim's book on the back, and here it is here. World War II as you've never seen it before. This brilliant, bone-chilling journey into the alternative history will enthrall you, will frighten you, and in the end will make you wonder what really happened and who really won. From the Wall Street Journal, think you know what's going on? You don't. Entertaining, jaw-dropping. And here's some more praises for Jim's book. This is from the Dallas Observer. Jim MARRS can't be ignored. Few in this country shout about the truth louder than he does, and isn't that the truth? When I return from this 2-minute commercial break, Jim MARRS will be joining us, talking to us about his new book, The Sisterhood of the Rose. His website is www.jimmars.com. Before we go to a commercial break, don't forget X Zone Nation that this Friday, this Saturday and Sunday, the 21st and 22nd of November, Russell Targ, the father of remote viewing, will be in Toronto. He'll be doing 2 one-day workshops, and they're going to be held at the Quality Hotel in Toronto, Bloor and Yonge Street. Reservations are going fast. I don't know how many reservations Paul LaFulcher at Vision Quest has left. Give him a call at 519-449-2444. That's area code 519-449-2444. In case you missed my interview with Russell this week, he's the physicist and author who was a pioneer in the development of the laser and laser applications and was co-founder of the Stanford Research Institute's investigation into psychic abilities. That was in the 70s, and in the 80s, he was with the CIA on the remote viewing project. Coming up next, when we return in 2 minutes, that's 2 minutes flat, our special guest is Jim MARRS. We're going to be talking about his new book that is out, entitled The Sisterhood of the Rose. My name's Rob McConnell, and this is the X Zone, that place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard, Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern, right here on Talkstar and our growing list of affiliates around the world. Welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. My special guest this hour is a good friend of the X Zone, Jim MARRS. We're talking to Jim about his new book, The Sisterhood of the Rose, The Recollections of Celeste Levesque. And Jim, welcome back to the X Zone. Congratulations on another job well done.
Well, thank you, Rob, and it's always a pleasure to be with you.
Jim, what was your inspiration for writing this book? And I'm telling you, you've raised a lot of eyebrows and have a lot of people wondering what the truth really is, as you usually do.
Right. Well, the subtitle is The Recollections of Celeste Levesque, and I met Celeste Levesque in about 1991, and she began to tell me this story. And it seems that back in the 80s, she had had a near-death experience, and after that, she began to have this conscious recall of what she felt like was a past life experience. A past life that took place during World War II, and she was fighting the Nazis over in Europe and using a code name, Velva Violet. And for years, I kept hearing this story, and we tried to do some checking. She did a lot of work trying to see what she could verify about the events that she remembered, and she found some evidence and then found none. And but what's really fascinating to me, Rob, is that there are now about 15 people that I've run across, the bulk of which she introduced me to. These are separate individuals, and yet they all say they have some kind of vague recollection of this same story. And it's about how that this woman, Giselle Tchaikovsky, created a secret society of women to help win World War II. So after a while, I finally thought, well, you know, I don't know how much of this I could actually prove and how much I can't, but it's a damn good story, and I'm going to put it down. And so that's how the Sisterhood of the Rose came to be.
There's quite a bit of symbolism in the Sisterhood of the Rose, and the
right.
What's the mysterious skull of fate?
Well, that one I embellished a little bit. She did recall that they had found this crystal skull, and as you and your listeners are probably well aware of, there's like 3 or 4 extant in the world today. So if there's 3 or 4, chances are there could be another one.
Yeah, that's right.
And they're very mysterious. The one in the British Museum, the scientists have said they found evidence of machining, okay?
Mm-hmm.
That some sort of machine was used to craft this thing, and yet it's been dated like 3,000 years old. And so there's a lot of mystery to it, and a lot of people who are into the metaphysical claim that one or more of these skulls can increase psychic power, have some sort of energy field to it that people can recognize. And so in the Sisterhood, we have the Skull of Fate, that whoever possesses it possesses a great innate power that can be used for either good or evil. And, of course, that's the start of the whole story when they discover this skull in South America, or actually Central America, in what is now the Yucatan. And it's stolen. There's an attack on their camp, and the skull ends up in the hands of Der Fuhrer, Adolf Hitler.
Now he was right into the paranormal, mystical, psychic realm.
Well, as a young man, brought up in the 50s, 60s, when we had to out-achieve the Soviets in space exploration, and all of the emphasis in education and in popular culture was on science. And so I'm very science-orientated. And when I first heard about psychic ability, I, like many people, kind of brushed it off.
Yeah.
Said, well, that's just woo-woo stuff for the credulous. But then, back in the early 90s, about the same time that I was learning about Celeste's story, I stumbled across the story of the Army's remote viewing unit, which I'm sure you and your listeners are pretty familiar with now. And in fact, that's one of my biggest gripes is that I was working with David Morehouse, Ed Dames, Mel Riley. I met and talked with most of the remote viewers. Interviewed Ingo Swann. To my great dismay, I was never able to catch up with Russell Targ until later years. But then other people that were involved in the military remote viewing. And after I did that investigation and then tried it myself and was tested on remote viewing, I realized that there is a reality there.
Mm-hmm. So you know what? We were talking a few seconds ago about crystal skulls, and it makes sense that there is something scientific and metaphysical about crystal skulls, because remember when we were kids, Jim, the little crystal radio sets we'd make?
Yeah.
There's a perfect example on how the crystal would be able to bring in radio waves and frequencies so that you could hear them. So
which is a very low radio frequency.
Exactly.
So you can imagine what's going on at higher frequencies.
Mm-hmm. So it makes a lot of sense that, the crystal skull connection, the remote viewing connection, I can see perfectly. Wasn't Hitler also supposed to be looking for the lance, or he had the lance that apparently the centurion, or not,
right,
the spirit, the spear of death, the spear of Christ?
It's actually the spear of Longinus, who, according to the legend, was a Roman soldier who was there at the crucifixion and plunged his spear into the side of Jesus. And interestingly enough, this was not a mean, vicious act. He did that, according to the legend, to try to spare Jesus the agony on the cross. In other words, put him out of his misery very fast. But that spear point, of course, became a holy relic, and there's just been all kinds of legends and things passed down through history. Reportedly, This spear point still exists and is in the Hoffman Museum in Vienna. But there are others, particularly people with some connections to the Hitler's Third Reich, who claim that that's just a replica and that the real one may still be hidden away and in the hands of more modern National Socialists, which, of course, the acronym for National Socialism is Nazi.
Jim MARRS is my special guest. We're talking about Jim's new book. It's called The Sisterhood of the Rose, The Recollections of Celeste Levesque. Visit Jim's website at www.jimmars.com. Jim, this is your first novel. Why did you decide to write a novel? Because usually you're a conspiracy author.
Correct. All of my past books have been nonfiction.
Mm-hmm.
I heard a great definition. You know the difference between fiction and nonfiction?
Married and single?
Fiction has to make sense.
Ah, that's right. Very good.
But in the real world, sometimes things just don't make any sense at all. But to answer your question, I just found Celeste's story so interesting and such a rollicking read but yet, there were so many aspects of it I could not nail down. I could not footnote and say, here, we know this because of this. And so I decided to put it in the form of a novel, which I call faction, okay? It's fact-based fiction. And so much of the things in Sisterhood of the Rose are based on fact, and yet some of it just sounds outrageous. Ian Fleming, for example, who was a British intelligence agent during World War II, and then went on to write the famous James Bond novels. And he was the father of James Bond. Mm-hmm. And he actually was peripherally involved in the plot that enticed Hitler's deputy, Rudolf Hess, to fly to England in an effort to try to secure a peace between Germany and England in 1941. And there is so much to that, and that has been investigated and documented. And so I put that in there. And we have Giselle meeting Ian Fleming, and they arranged to meet with Hess's astrologers, and they assure them that the time is propitious and that they need to go and convince their boss, Rudolf Hess, that the time has come for him to fly to England and make an astounding peace between Germany and England right there near the height of World War II. So that's absolutely fact. And in fact, it came down to, in the history books and in the documentation, to a certain French astrologer, okay, who helped propel the plot along. And dig as I could never find out whether this French astrologer was a man or a woman or what the astrologer's identity was. So I made it our character, Giselle Tchaikovsky. Various things like that.
Jim, we've got to take our commercial break with the news at the bottom of the hour. Okay. Sorry for cutting you off, my friend. Jim MARRS is my special guest. Another great book from Jim. It's entitled The Sisterhood of the Rose, the collection of Celeste Levesque. And this is one book we're going to be putting on the X Zone suggested Christmas list here at www.xzoneradio.com. Jim MARRS, a special guest all the time whenever he joins us here on the X Zone. His website is www.jimmarrs.com, JIMMARRS.com. My name is Rob McConnell. You're listening to the X Zone Radio Show live and around the world from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
My name is Michael Telstar, Canada's leading mentalist from Toronto, Ontario.
Hi, my name is Belinda, and you're listening to my dad, Rob McConnell, on the X Zone. This is Psychic Dorothy from St. Catharines, and you're listening to Rob McConnell.
Hello, my name is Holly Reeves, an astrologer from Astro For You, and you're listening to Canada's #1 paranormal radio show, The X Zone, with Rob McConnell.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. My special guest this hour is Jim MARRS, and Jim has a brand new book out. It's entitled The Sisterhood of the Rose, The Recollections of Celeste Levesque. It's available at fine bookstores everywhere. I'm sure it's available on Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, and where else, Jim, can we get a hold of your book?
Well, my website's kind of under construction at the moment, but I think you could probably order a copy off there. But probably the best thing to do, and since they're just, I mean, we're talking brand new, fresh off the press.
I know.
They just hit the bookshelves like probably midweek. So the best thing would probably be to go to your local bookstore, or of course you can always order off Amazon.
They're great people, and it's like I said, we're going to be putting your book, Jim, if you don't mind, on our suggested Christmas gift list here at the X Zone.
Oh, that's great. I think it would make a good Christmas gift because I think it will appeal to a wide swath of people. Not only people who are interested in the metaphysical, trying to bring the feminine and masculine aspects of this world back into balance, but also students of World War II who probably would be astounded to find out that when Hitler attacked Russia in June of 1941, it wasn't just that he woke up one morning and says, "I think I'll attack Russia." It was a preemptive strike. Stalin was fixing to attack Europe, and would have probably overrun Europe because he had amassed 22,000 tanks. Hitler only had 3,000 tanks. So about the only way you could have stopped that huge communist juggernaut was to strike first, and that's what he did. And this answers a big question I'd had all my life, being a kind of a lay student of World War II, was how was it that the Nazis were able to launch Operation Barbarossa in June of 41 and just crash through the Russian lines and encircle whole armies and whole divisions, and just, they just ran rampant. How were they able to do that? Could the Russians not fight very well? Did they not have very good equipment? They had great equipment, and they had millions of men, but they were in a offensive positions. They were getting ready to jump off for their attack. They were not in defensive positions, so they weren't able to withstand the attack of the Germans.
Let me ask you this hypothetical question, Jim. What do you think would have happened if the Russians would have been successful?
Well, we would have had probably, instead of a Cold War, we would have had a hot war, and it would have been the United States and Britain and all the other allied nations trying to fight a unified communist Europe to include all of Russia, which would have had a whole different outcome probably than World War II.
Speaking, Jim, you're a student of history. You're one of the top writers when it comes to conspiracy theories. In my book, you are the top. Got to ask you a question. 2012, what's your take on it? December 21st, 2012. Is it the end of the world?
If you mean, is the world going to blow up,
Yeah.
or we're going to be hit by a comet or a solar flare and everybody wiped out? I have seen the new movie, and it's a great special effects movie. the whole world is either blown away or goes underwater. Nah, I don't really think that's going to happen. Of course, we're always in line for an asteroid strike, solar flare. These things have happened, but the odds are that it's not going to happen anytime soon. If it does, there's no sense worrying about it, right, Rob?
Exactly.
I mean, if a solar flare comes along and incinerates the Earth, what are we going to do about it, right? Might as well just not worry about that.
My dad, God bless him, who's in his 80s now, and thank the good Lord he's still around to share his wisdom, says, live every day as if it was your last.
That's a perfect philosophy.
Yeah.
Now, as to what might be going to happen on 2012, there is a lot of interesting things going on, and for one thing, if it was just the Mayan calendar, which ends in December 21st, 2012, I'd say, oh well, those poor old Indians, no telling what they were smoking. But it's not just the Mayans. Yeah. It's the Nostradamus, Mother Shipton, the Aborigines in Australia, and a whole raft of others: the Kabbalists, the Egyptians, the Essenes, Quero elders of Peru, the Navajos, the Cherokees.
Yes, but what you're talking about are societies and cultures that had a very high respect for astronomy.
Exactly.
And the stars. So is it possible, Jim, and this is strictly hypothetical, is it possible that with their ancient knowledge of astronomy, that they were actually able to figure out that there was going to be a galactic meeting?
Well, I think they knew that there was going to be a progression, and that the progression, as in any cycle, finally cycles around, and it comes to the
alignment.
The alignment, the end of the cycle, and the science does tell us that on winter solstice of 2012, our sun comes into direct alignment with the center of the galaxy. Now, what's really fascinating to me is that scientists also tell us that they've been receiving radio signals out of the center of the galaxy. And even the National Geographic, which is not exactly your most far-out radical rag, they raise the question, could this be from an intelligent source? So I think there's fixing to be some really interesting things take place. In fact, I will say this. I think that about mid-2013, Rob, you and I will be able to say to each other, we're not living in the same world that we were living in 2009. Just like right now, you and I can agree, we're not living in the same world we were living in pre-9/11 2001.
Definitely.
Right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think there's going to be some very exciting and some perhaps even perturbing things taking place. But I think 2013, 2014, for the most part, we'll all be here.
Jim MARRS is our special guest. We're talking to Jim, who is a very good friend of the X Zone. His website is jimmarrs.com. He's got a brand new book out. It's called The Sisterhood of the Rose. It's going to be on the X Zone suggested Christmas shopping list. And we're going to be, apparently my producers are telling me it's going online December the 1st. And it's going to be, what is it? xzonechristmaslist.com. Okay, there you go. Thanks very much, guys. 1-877-528-8255, 1-800-610-7035. And we're coming to you live on Talkstar Radio Network, America Talk Network, Rogers Media International, RRTV, VRR, and Media for Law Enforcement Officers International. And speaking about law enforcement, Jim, this weekend is the anniversary of the assassination of President Kennedy, and I understand you're going to be in Dallas for that.
Right. I'll be at the Lancer conference in Dallas over the weekend, and every year around the end of November, we all certainly the media prompts us, and we all stop to recall that the 35th President of the United States was also the youngest president we've had, was assassinated in Dallas. Unfortunately, that's about the only thing everybody can agree on. The government, of course, with a hand-picked panel selected by his successor, Lyndon Johnson, determined in mid-1964 that the whole thing was the result of a loner, kind of a nut, Lee Harvey Oswald. But unfortunately, as Lee's mother always told me, she said, I could accept the fact that my son shot the president if they would prove it to me. But they never proved it to her, and frankly, they never proved it to me.
So what do you think actually happened, Jim, as a conspiracy theorist?
All right. Well, of course, here's the problem, Rob. I could bore you and your audience for about the next 2 days with just an ongoing outpouring of anecdotes and evidence and
Jim, you're talking to the X-Zone Nation. You could never bore us.
And at the end of it, you go, oh, I see what you're saying, okay? Or I can just tell you 25 words or less, or probably more, what happened. So that's what I'm going to do. But I'm not asking for anybody's belief, okay? Just listen to what I'm saying, and then go do your own research and see if you don't come to the same conclusion. John F. Kennedy was killed in a military-style ambush in Dealey Plaza. There were probably at least 2 gunmen, most probably 3, because that's standard military ambush, triangulation of fire. There was at least 4 or 5 shots fired, making it impossible for Lee Harvey Oswald to have been the lone assassin.
Right.
In fact, one fact alone absolves Oswald.
What's that?
We are told he had a wartime Italian war rifle. The Mannlicher Carcano was a 6.5 millimeter rifle. It is not a high velocity rifle, and yet the official story, official autopsy, the official version that we're still getting is that Kennedy was killed with a high velocity rifle round. Well, Oswald did not have a high velocity rifle, so that alone says he didn't do the shooting. But then, of course, there's the messed up autopsy, the controversy, claim and counterclaim, and he was killed because he was trying to take steps to return the power in this country to the people. He was raised in a rich family, but he was the best educated president we ever had. And since he never had to worry about scrambling for a buck, he was able to be pretty altruistic and say, well, let's do what's good for the people. And what that meant was ending and withdrawing from Vietnam, no Vietnam War, issuing our own interest-free money. The only other president that tried that was Abraham Lincoln, when he issued greenbacks to finance the war between the states. And, Rob, I don't think it's sheer coincidence that both of those men were shot in the head in public.
Neither do I.
He also was trying to curtail the power of the international corporations, which was stepping on the toes of the Nazis that were brought over here under paperclip after the war and had created a huge corporate empire in league with Wall Street and the city of London. So he was just doing all kinds of things. In fact, there is a document that is somewhat controversial, but I think it's real because it dovetails with a known document of that same date, which is November the 11th, 1963, when he sends a memorandum to the head of the CIA ordering them to turn over all of their files on UFOs to the White House, which would have been tantamount to making all this public because the White House, leaks like a sieve all the time. And,
just ask Bill Clinton. He'll tell you that. Yeah,
exactly. So all of that collectively, and of course his brother is head of, was Bobby Kennedy, and he was the Attorney General, and he had an organized crime task force, and he was prosecuting organized crime like never before or since. And in fact, I had a member of the Kennedy family tell me one time that if Kennedys had continued their war against the mafia, that they would have broken the back of organized crime in this country. So just think what kind of nation we might have today if there were no organized crime. So all of this collectively was motive enough for people to move against him, and they just did it in Dallas and laid on a cover story. Oswald did it all by himself, and that's their story, and they're going to stick to it, even though the evidence flies in the face of it.
Jim MARRS, please stand by. We have to take our final break for this hour. Always great having you with us, Jim. Jim's new book is entitled The Sisterhood of the Rose, The Recollections of Celeste Levesque. And I'd also like to thank the good people at Disinformation for helping make this interview possible with Jim. 1-800-610-7035 is the toll-free number, as well as 1-877-528-8255. This is the X-Zone on the Talkstar Radio Network, America Talk Network, Rogers Media International, RRTV, VRRR, and Media for International Law Enforcement Officers. We'll be back on the other side of this break, continuing talking to our good friend Jim MARRS as the X-Zone continues right here on Talkstar.
Anybody here seen my old friend Abraham? Can you tell me where he's gone? He freed a lot of people, but it seems good they die young. You know, I just looked around and he's Anybody here seen my old friend John? Can you tell me where he's gone? He freed a lot of people, but it seemed good they die young. I just looked around and he's gone.
Robert Frost, January 20th, 1961.
Such as we were, we gave ourselves outright. The deed of gift was many deeds of war, to the land vaguely realizing westward, but still unstoried, heartless, unenhanced, such as she was, such as she would become, has become, and for this occasion let me change that to what she will become.
All this will not be finished in the first 100 days, nor will it be finished in the first 1,000 days, nor in the life of this administration, nor even perhaps in our lifetime on this planet. But let us begin. The energy, the faith, the devotion which we bring to this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it. And the glow from that fire can truly light the world. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
An excellent tribute to President John F. Kennedy. Jim MARRS, I want to thank you so much for sharing your time with us here tonight. Congratulations on another great book, The Sisterhood of the Rose, The Recollections of Celeste Levesque, available at Amazon.com. Brand new, hot off the presses. Jim, thank you for joining us tonight. Take care of yourself, my friend, and I look forward to the next time when you and I meet here in the X Zone.
Sounds good, and I look forward to speaking with you again, Rob. And if we don't speak before, I wish you and all your listeners a really happy and pleasant Christmas time, New Year's holidays.
Jim MARRS, thanks very much for joining us. When we come back from this commercial break with the news at the top of the hour at 6.5 minutes past, Nick Redfern is my guest. We're going to be talking to Nick about his new book entitled Contactees. My name is Rob McConnell, and this is the X Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard, Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern on the Talkstar Radio Network and our growing worldwide affiliates.
Anybody here seen my old friend Abraham? Can you tell me where he's gone? He freed a lot of people, but it seems good they die young. You know, I just look around.